The following is a fan-based discussion. All properties discussed are property of Toei Inc., Bandai, Hasbro, and Subaru Productions. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Tokucast Reviews, episode number 179. Marcus and Jacob here to discuss Ultraseven. Seven.
As you can tell, we like that opening.
The opening is great.
The opening is so good. It's so 60s. And I think, like, especially in comparison to the, original Ultraman one, man, I think this one holds up a bit better.
In terms of the show or the opening?
Yes.
Good answer. You know what might even be more 60s than the opening, though? It's that insert song that they play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So good. So good.
It's like, the song feels a little too happy for what's going on, but I'm here for it.
Murder, death, and destruction. Just 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm sitting here like 4,
5, 6, 7.
This show was great.
The show is very good.
Yeah.
Yes, I like it a lot.
Yeah. I get why this is the one that is always referenced. Like, so much comes from 7. So many monsters. Pokemon starts here. This is where they get the idea for Pokemon from with the Ultra Capsules. Pikachu starts here with King. Pikachu, Raichu, and Pichu. And
Before he gets decapitated.
Yeah.
Shower of gore.
Yeah, this show is murder happy. 7 will cut your head off, and you will deal with it. Or won't, you'll be dead.
Or just, you'll be trying to flee for your life, and he'll just explode you with lasers.
Man, do I like this show.
Where would you like to start?
Oh. Let's talk about some of our favorite episodes of this.
Episode 7.
I was going to say episode 8.
Is that the same episode? I might be getting them wrong again.
Episode
8, thank you. Episode 7's good too, but episode 8, The Marked Town, a.k.a. it has a couple of other names. Yeah, The Marked Town, Town Under Siege, some other stuff. But this episode, one of the single greatest episodes of Toku ever.
Yeah.
You think that's an exaggeration?
No.
Right.
It was fantastic. Yes. I mean, genuinely, the way that it's shot, the way the action is done, just so much about it. The relationship between Dan and An really starts here too.
Oh yeah.
And God, it's just good.
It is just great dramatic storytelling, great stakes, beautiful cinematography.
Yes!
It has a good mystery. There are scenes in this that remind me of things like I get like James Bond vibes from certain scenes. There is I texted you that screenshot that I just like took a picture from my TV, but that image alone, if it were an oil painting, it would belong in a museum.
Yeah.
It belongs in a museum. It's just Ultraman and the Kaiju squaring off against each other, silhouetted against the sunset with this industrial backdrop and the dried up riverbed.
Yeah.
It creates a sense of place, time, and it's just so artistically beautiful.
Yeah.
And coming off of the first one, where it really feels like because that director, Akio Jisoji, he had directed some episodes of Ultraman 1 as well. And you can see shades of that there.
Yeah.
And I think with this, it's like they were finally like, okay, so like the growing pains are done. What can we really do with the show? What can we really do with this genre on television?
Yeah.
And Ultra 7 really feels like the exploration of what is possible with Toku as a whole.
Yeah.
Because this is 1967 to 1968, so Kamen Rider hasn't happened yet, Super Sentai hasn't happened yet. And this really feels like what will lay the groundwork for those to come.
Yeah.
In terms of just like this as an art form, as a form of, like don't want to repeat myself too much, but, as an art.
Yeah.
Tokusatsu, not just as television and entertainment, but what can we do with it as art?
Yeah.
And I think episode 8 is like one of the greatest examples of that. That scene at Un's uncle's funeral.
Yeah.
Where we're following Dunn from behind.
Yeah, they go
that
crazy.
That shot where they're following it, the camera is following him from behind, and as he is passing groups of people, you hear bits of their conversation.
Yeah.
And the way that, like, when he turns his head to look at them, we hear their audio, but then when he turns away, it starts to fade out. And that keeps up, and it's a long take.
Yeah,
it's like they held the camera over the actor's shoulder and just like held that take.
It's so good.
That scene where he's at the apartment ready to confront the kaiju, he's like walking down the hall, and it's like lit. It looks like a film noir the way it's like lit, with the light just kind of streaming in from the blinds.
Yeah,
he's got his gun out. This is the scene that really reminded me of James Bond, where he's just kind of walking slowly. Camera behind him, and like the hallway looks so much longer than it is because of the focus they used. You got that. That episode is a great mystery with the cigarettes.
Yeah,
and it's moments like that where I was asking myself, "Is this the greatest show? Is this show the greatest?
Is this what Hugh Jackman was singing about?
Is this the greatest show? Who knows?" But one thing I do know is that this show is very good.
That's one of those episodes that's just really like, I was thinking about it the entire time I was watching this. Because no other episode in this show feels like that. Mm-hmm. And it's such an outlier. I think my favorite scene in that is when Dan and An are sitting in the cafe above the smoking
the vending machine.
And like their conversation's just going. You can see the things that are happening outside through the slits in the blinds, and it's a fantastic scene. Mm-hmm. Them sort of trying to hold like a normal conversation, but at the same time not being able to.
An is shaken so emotionally because of what's
happened.
It's there's like something in the cigarettes that is making people go crazy, commit acts of violence.
Like a whole plane crash happens.
Her uncle was the pilot.
Yeah, it's such a it's her sort of going through PTSD a little bit in the beginning of this, and I was sort of in awe through that entire episode. It is honestly one of my favorite episodes of Toku ever. It's fantastic.
The scene with the interrogation and the way they
through the grates,
but also the way they cut back to it.
Yeah,
you took the time in 1967 to shoot extra coverage to get that angle for the flashback. Then you took the time to photochemically alter the film just for that one scene that lasts maybe 3 seconds for the flashback to give them a clue, like, oh, it's the cigarettes, there's something there. And that moment especially was just like, oh, wow. This person is an incredible director. And I looked up his filmography. Akio Jisoji directed everything from children's television to like erotic films.
Yeah, he did everything.
He directed everything.
Yeah,
and
they did not bring him back that often after this, though. He was very sporadic with this show.
Yeah.
But yeah, God,
glad he was there.
I know it's just like that one episode that we've been talking about for the past 10 minutes, but there's a reason for that. Go watch episode 8.
If you're gonna watch anything, watch episode 8.
Fantastic. There is a band episode with episode 12.
Oh boy.
The reason behind that is because the alien in this, who's never appeared again,
there's a reason for that.
Looks like the victims of the bomb explosion over Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Because if you've ever seen them, for example, if somebody was wearing a kimono that day, the pattern on the kimono would have been burned into their skin.
Yeah.
And not like, ooh, pretty, there's like a picture of a phoenix on your body. No, like it's a rubbery, distorted scar, and it does not, it's horrifying. It is.
Alien Spell was only in that episode.
Yeah.
And it has never appeared again. I mean, I know there are like some other ones, but this one is the only one that's ever been banned from being shown again.
which is crazy.
Yeah. You can't even watch this show in this episode in Japanese because it hasn't been re-released since 1970. You have to watch the dub, the English dub of it. That's the only time that you can watch this episode.
Well, there are subversions on YouTube.
Yeah. I watched mine watch it on Dailymotion because they didn't have the dub version on YouTube that I could find. So I just ended up watching it on Dailymotion. It's a good episode, don't get me wrong, but it's just weird. Like, one person's complaint sort of turned into this whole thing.
Well, and the fact that, like, what they referred to, the internal name for that alien on set was kind of disrespectful in the way that they referred, because I don't want to... What was it actually called? I want to make sure I get it right.
Alien Spell was its name.
Was the name in the show, but... It had a name on set that the crew...
Alien Hibaku.
Hibaku, right. And that is the name that, you know, like, referring to it as that internally was also deemed offensive.
Yeah.
And when you told me there was a banned episode, you know what my mind immediately went to?
What?
It was Pokemon.
Oh, Porygon.
It's Porygon. It's the Savari Zone episode where the guy was just like shoving a gun in people's faces constantly.
Jinx in general.
The Jinx, yeah. It's things like that. This is not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how another country's internal history affects things like this.
It actually really, the way that the militarization of Japan is really prevalent in this show in particular. Like, that's such a pervading theme throughout Ultraseven. It's like the over-militarization, because sometimes it really doesn't work with, like, oh, we want to fight this alien. I mean, I think there's only like a couple of episodes, but it's like the aliens aren't doing anything really. Like, a couple times they'll make friends, but sometimes they'll overreact.
Okay. I want to, speaking of that, I think that can lead us into the next episode. The one that you said... Which number did you say? It was in the 20s. Episode 26. You sent me a text.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 26 of 7 really encapsulates the theme of the show and of itself. So, elaborate.
Episode 26 basically ends up as like, oh, we want to test this super weapon. Let's blow up this planet which has nobody on it. It did. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, because of people's own hubris. And they mentioned this in the show, like in the episode. It's just like, oh, this was my fault. Mm-hmm. This monster came here because we decided to test this weapon and blow up. I think it was just a planetoid, but blow up this planetoid. Mm-hmm. It was so good. And it was just like seeing it. You see the looks on people's faces in the episodes like, what did we do? What did we do? And
you know what it reminded me of?
What?
Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like things that you see throughout the latter half of Oppenheimer where it's like, okay, we did the thing, we made the weapon, we won the war. Now we have to keep making more of these.
Yeah.
Now we have to keep making bigger weapons. Our weapons have to be bigger, more deadly, so on and so forth. Because if we don't, there's a chance the other person might do it first.
Yeah.
And then they would come after us. We don't have any proof of this, but we just have to be sure to be safe. And that's what this episode is.
Yeah.
They bring that up multiple times. It's like, well, because people are protesting, like people within the Sevens organization, I'm forgetting what it's called, but they're protesting like, no, we shouldn't be doing this. Like, we don't need this weapon.
Oh, the UGF.
Yeah, the UGF. Thank you. But like, we don't
the
need
Ultra Galaxy. The Ultra Guard. That's their name. Sorry, UG.
Yes. So we don't need this weapon. It's too much. This is overkill. And they're like, no. One day a kaiju might come from space or an alien, and it will be so powerful that even Ultraseven can't stop it. So we need to be ready for that. And to do so, we're gonna make like the deadliest weapon that we can.
Yeah.
We need to strike first before they do.
And the entire episode is just like, we really shouldn't be doing this. Mm-hmm. And I think it really ends up tying into really enough the banned episode, because it's just
it's the 60s. It's that nuclear proliferation.
Yeah.
That was all happening then.
It's just, seeing all of that, especially being explored and just the over-militarization, especially because the militarization of Japan happened so quickly prior to this, during the Meiji era. And you end up seeing just like a lot of people really weren't okay with that. And you see some of that really being explored in some of the episodes of Ultraseven. It feels like such a good allegory for things. I mean, I really don't know as much about world history at that time, but you can see just the people's feelings of things that were happening or of things that have happened, specifically in episodes like episode 12 and episode 26. It's just...
You can at the very least hear the voice of the author.
Yeah.
The voices of the creators behind it saying, we take a stance on this.
Yeah. God, it's such a good show. To a more comedic note, there was one episode where it was a husband who ended up working for the TDF or the UG. The Ultra Guard are under the Defense Force, like the big Defense Force. And this guy's like a scientist. He was on the moon base and he comes back and he goes home to his wife, white wife. I love this woman. She was ADR to hell. But it's the acting of her. Like something happens and she just like, and I was like, give her the Grammy, give her the Emmy, give her the Tony, give her the Oscar, give her everything, give her the Razzie. Because she was the best person in this episode. It was
the best in the world.
It was the overacting, but I believed her. I love this woman.
It's like the villain grabs a woman in an old movie and it's just like the palms of the wrist. You brute, you brute.
It really is that. I think it's also just, it's one of my episodes, one of my favorite things. I love seeing Ultras in mundane areas when they're small. It's just Ultraman on the stairs, going down the stairs.
We get some good stuff with that in this show.
Yeah.
Ultraman being regular sized.
Yeah.
You know what? You know something that this show has in some somewhat plentiful supply? One of my absolute favorite sounds ever. I think I would go so far as to say it's my favorite sound ever. That is the sound of hard-soled shoes on, like, hard floors in old movies. That hard, like, clip-cloppy sound. There's a specific way that those shoes sound on that kind of surface that I just find so pleasing.
Yeah.
And there are some great moments where, like, there's a chase scene happening and you hear like the villain's footsteps clop, 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 and then the hero's clop, 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 and there is an amazing moment early on in the show where Ultraman is like regular sized and you hear like the clap noise, like he's chasing someone down, but then it's like you see him like run out, the villain like runs out and he runs away, and then Ultraman, regular sized Ultraman, leaps out. It does like takes around and then he runs off, but I love that he doesn't make any sounds because of the suit. His shoes are, the soles of his feet are all soft, so you don't hear anything. So it's like to go from like clop, 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 and seeing like a person in a suit running away to just Ultraseven leaping out of an open door and being like, huh, and then running off
into ultra silence.
It was completely silent. The contrast was amazing.
I think it's like there are so many things in this show which are unintentionally hilarious as well. There's one episode where Seven is fighting outside and he gets like thrown over a mountain or something. He dies behind a mountain, and then you just see like his head just come out like this. It's just his head, and it's so weird seeing that perspective on an Ultra where it's his head, or when he turns himself really small and he's just in a flower. I don't know. I love seeing Ultras in really weird areas like that.
We need more, like, small Ultra.
Yeah, we need more
Ultra and explores the human body.
Yes, that episode was weird.
Ultra has to go in and fight a virus.
That episode was so weird. I love seeing our favorite Mr. Tachibana-san from Rider and the first Ultraman showing up in this. He shows up near the end where it was such a good episode where basically the aliens came in and took over this entire residential area and like sank the city and put a new one up. And he like goes
sank it to the swamp.
Yeah, he goes up at like 3 a.m. or something. He goes to his apartment with his wife and son, and they don't recognize him, and no one around recognizes him. I'm sitting here like, you recognize Toei Tachibana. You might not yet because 1968.
You know who this is.
You'll know him in like 3 years.
Star of film and television, Toei Tachibana.
Just in episodes for days. But yeah, I really liked that episode. Not to mention, I thought this is when we were going to end up getting like, oh, the Ultraman crossover. But Ultraseven takes place at the time in a separate continuity than the original Ultraman, and it's not until the next one, Return of Ultraman, where they get retconned together, which is why like
hence no one in the show goes, oh, it's Ultraman. No, he looks a little different.
And it's also why we get like the Chief of Ultra at the very end of the show, who looks just like Ultraseven, the Chief of Ultraseven. He never shows up again.
Nope.
This is the only time that you ever see him. Because he basically ends up getting taken over by Father of Ultra.
Father of Ultra and Ultra King.
Yeah, and Mother of Ultra. You know, the Ultra brothers and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I just... Yeah. There's one other thing I really like about this.
Yeah.
The lack of color timer.
Go on.
Because Seven is solar powered. He basically just... True. The only time that it ever starts to blink is when he's like exceedingly damaged and he can't recharge from solar energy.
Yeah.
I just really, really liked how he worked as an Ultra.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because this is the first one where it's just like, oh, I'm not a separate being or anything, because, you know, in Ultraman it's just, oh, I take over this dead body and brought it back to life. This time it's, I'm this person. Mm-hmm. And we end up seeing the person that he's based off of in an episode where they end up having to go underground because the person that he's based off of is a miner.
Mm. One thing that this show does that I don't know that any... Feel free to correct me if you think I'm wrong, but any Toku that has done before or since, and that is show the toll that fighting takes on your hero's physical body.
Oh, you mean at the end of the show?
Yeah, at the end of the show, because at the end, when he is just physically, like, his body is, like, destroyed.
Yeah.
He's feverish, he's weak, he can barely move, he can't hold this transformation for long.
He's seeing a possible hallucination of himself.
Yes, and, you know, he's told you need to return to your own galaxy or you will die.
Yeah.
Your body cannot handle the stress of this anymore.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to see a Toku tell its hero the toll that your exploits have taken on your body is killing you.
Yeah.
That is something we don't see. It's usually just, well, we beat the bad guy and my specific power set is not needed for the next series. We pass the torch on to the next one. No, in this one, it's like, you need to go or you will die.
Yeah.
And to address the physical toll that fighting episode after episode after episode against giant monsters, against, just against evil in all forms, against Kaijin, Kaiju, whatever you have. And what that physically and mentally, like, does to a person, this is the first time I think it's ever been addressed.
I wish they
would
have...
in like this.
Such a minor thing. Mm. I wish they would have done something with that a little bit earlier instead of just the last two episodes.
It's true. They do. It is set up in, like, the beginning of the last two episodes of Dan isn't feeling well, what's going on? He gets the instructions to leave, and then he's like, no, I can't do that.
I'll go to space.
I'm not doing that yet.
And then I'll miss a lot. And they end up having a recurring character who's on the moon, or in the space base.
The space base. I like that space base.
Yeah, I like that space base too. Who's, like, out there and, you know, just like, oh, you need to go back. You're just missing left and right. What the hell are you doing? You gotten shot. Go ahead and make an emergency landing. And then Dan's, like, passed out in there. Anne comes back with long hair at this point. I was a little confused because I got so used to her in short hair. I thought it was a different actress.
She has multiple hairstyles throughout, because when it starts, she has, like, kind of like the short, kind of like a bob. It's kind of like a short bob that's, like, flipped out.
Yeah.
Comes down to about, like,
neck
length. Like neck length, and it's, like, flipped out. It looks really cute.
And then for a lot of the show, she has a very short haircut.
It's like a pixie cut, and I love that.
Yeah. It's very, what is her? Twiggy. It was a model at the time. She's still around. But yeah, it's like that haircut was super popular, and I just wasn't used to her with long hair at the end, so I got confused.
And did she grow it out, or is that a wig? Where they were like, we want a different look for the rest of it.
We need a wig! It's not a wig! It's a way of life.
You heard it here first.
But yeah, it was just weird. Like, it just sort of came out of nowhere, and I just wasn't expecting
it. Wait, who are you? Don't you recognize me with my long locks?
This isn't a wig. It's a way of life. Comedy. But yeah. Just speaking of Anne, and we'll go to Dan after her. I like Anne a lot. Like, she tries to be a little bit more proactive, especially coming off of the last one where the lady just did, like, nothing.
She's just there.
But this
felt that way about a lot of the characters in the original. They were just like, yeah, they're here too. Whatever.
This time, they actually have personalities. But yeah, I really liked her. Just as a character. You know, she was basically, like, the medic, but she wasn't... Like, they made sure to send her out on field work a lot. She was the only woman there. But she was really active. And she pretty much always had a prevalent role in each show.
They also made it so
each episode, I should say.
They also made it so she was like the only one who had any kind of like real medical knowledge. So like whenever anyone on the team got hurt, like she had to be there.
Yeah.
So she has a much more active role as a result.
I think this is one of those things that, especially coming off of Soul Brain, where John has one of my favorite episodes in the show, but didn't get to do much. Yeah. An sort of feels like a better version of her. Weirdly enough. And you would think with the person who was actually in the suit of armor would actually do something. But An honestly also ends up having one of my favorites. It's the one where she's at like the party for her friend.
Oh, yeah.
With the dog that gets killed at the beginning of the episode.
Yep.
And we're just like, what? But I was just like, no, I'm going to investigate. I have things to do. Yes. I mean, she ends up calling the rest of the Ultra Guard and everything, but she's on the scene already. So she's going to do something. She ends up getting kidnapped part of the way.
Already at the swinging 60s.
Yeah, but An herself, and the fact that she actually shows up a lot over the next couple of years. She even shows up in Ultraseven X.
Oh, cool.
That was her.
That's right. Yeah, I was looking at the actress's profile and I was like, oh yeah, she was in that.
Yeah, she's
essentially playing the same character.
Yeah,
just like an older version of that.
Yeah, it's just her consistently. I think she shows up in Leo as well. But yeah, I liked her. I liked her a lot, and I like how active she was. It really did a lot for her character, and I really appreciate the things they did for her character as well. Just a really good one. I really liked her. Don himself. I like Dan.
Yes.
Dan was great. Dan Moribushi. The man who, if you ask, he will show up on set. Plot twist, he was actually already there. Yeah, the actor shows up. Him and the original Ultra actors show up as often as they can. I mean, they are a lot older now. Yeah. But they show up as often as they can. They're around a lot. I just really appreciate the fact that, at least for Super Riot, they really end up taking care of their people. Yeah. And making sure, just like, oh, do you want to come back? Here you go.
Especially for you who loves it when older actors show up
I do.
And things.
I do. I really do. It's great.
But yeah, Dan's a really good Ultra.
Yeah.
The way he's introduced is great, where he's he's introduced as a civilian.
Yeah.
And I believe this would be the first example of this, where we have our character, our lead Ultra is introduced as a civilian, and then like do something heroic as the Ultra, and then they join whatever our heroic organization is.
Yes. And he shows up as a little bit of a bastard man.
Yeah.
Which is weirdly enough, because that sort of gets echoed later on in episode 30. When that other guy ends up coming in, but he's like, oh, I want to have all the glory and all that. And then he gets himself killed.
Oops.
Crazy. Weirdly enough, one of my favorite episodes where Dan sort of ends up taking a little bit of a backseat, it's later, I think it's episode 40, when like those dead bodies are just like throwing themselves in front of cars and everything. But it ends up turning out like the aliens are using like their souls to do all of these bad things. It's just like, oh, and they explain exactly what happened. They had 10 cadavers at a hospital that they were using for like scientific research. This is the 60s. And they end up like all disappearing. I love this episode. It's so creepy. The way that it's shot with the shadows on the wall, craziness. Because that's the souls, and like Anne sees it, and Dan almost sees it. But Anne sees it first inside the, I guess the hospital room. It's just such a wild episode. You end up seeing like them leaving the UG like task room, and like you follow their shadows, and then another shadow comes in, but you can't see the body. And I love that. Oh, it was so good.
The villains of this show that we get throughout its runtime, run the gamut of being pure evil to sympathetically evil.
Yeah.
It's interesting the way some of them are just, we are going to do a bad thing because we are bad, and some of them are, yeah, I know what we're doing is bad, but I'm doing it to save my planet.
Yeah.
There was, an episode where it's like we need to do what we're doing. They're doing something that will eventually like kill lots of people. But it's like, we need this in order to feed my planet. We're starving.
Yeah.
Our race will die out. We will die. Please, Ultraseven, will you help us? Like, it's interesting the way some of them are just like, yeah, we're evil, and some of them are given pathos, and it's like, wow, you really thought to change it up like that.
Yeah.
Unlike the first one, where potentially they would give a villain some kind of a pathos, but at the end of the day, it's just like, nope, death and
destruction. Enjoy your death.
And it ends that way, but there really isn't much of a moral quandary at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What it is that Ultraseven has to do, but it's interesting to see that they gave it that range.
Also, I love we get so many of our favorite kaiju in this. King Joe shows up for the first time. Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, Ella King. Pandon shows up at the very end. Mm-hmm. I feel like they end up getting, especially from these two, we see occasionally things from Ultra Q, and I'm happy that they're using new ones nowadays. Mm-hmm. But it's good to see like where things come in. I don't think I'll ever get tired of Ella King. And I've said this before, I really don't think I'll ever get tired of Ella King.
I like seeing these kaiju in a Showa-era show where it feels like they belong.
Yes.
It's nice to not see them in something from the modern era where it's like, you look too goofy to be in this show. You don't look like you belong here.
Yeah.
And then, thank goodness we had Blazer that just was like, what about all new monsters? What if we didn't do that?
I think they had like one or two returning monsters in Blazer. And I'm pretty sure they're going to end up having an arc as well. But
we'll see.
That's fine.
Look forward to that first impressions.
Yeah, that's fine when they do that. We just need more new ones so we can have new favorites. Mm-hmm. So we can bring them back. Like, we brought back the one from X how many times? Like, at least 3 times now. And I'm still okay with that because he's still creepy as hell. Mm. Griza. Mm. Jesus Christ, that sound. Anyway. Yeah, even the Ultra Guard themselves, I liked a lot of the Ultra Guard. They were just, they had distinct personalities. And that's one thing that you saw it a little bit in the regular Ultraman, but we don't get it that often, and man, does it hurt it.
I feel like the members of the Ultra Guard I feel like they're similar in personality, but they give them like a little bit of enough nuance.
Well, it's like you have Soga, who's like the sharpshooter, and he's a bit more serious. And Amagi is just like, oh, I'm sort of hilarious. And I really ended up getting that from him because they really kept up with that consistent storyline and characterization for him pretty much throughout the entire time, where he doesn't take things as seriously, and it will sometimes end up biting him. Like, oh, this is just a prank. We don't have to go do this. And the captain's like, no, we had to respond to everyone because there's a good chance something will happen.
Good captain in this show, too.
Yeah, Kaoru was great.
I like the captain. The end of the show where might be one of the first and only times I've seen a commanding officer reprimand the Ultra for not being, like his, civilian form, for not being on the scene or performing poorly during a mission and not being there when there was a kaiju present. And it's like, where the hell were you? You have a job to do. And just really like chewing him out and like telling him what for.
I really wish we would have
actually calling attention to the fact that he wasn't there.
Yeah, I really wish we would have gotten like at least an episode, especially near the end, where we find out that, Dan is Ultraseven. And the only one who really ever ends up finding out is Anne.
Yeah.
Is Ann. Which is a great scene, by the way, because it's like, she's found out that she's in profile, and like they take out the sun from behind her and put in like these blindingly bright lights, and like it's just
like a
dark.
Shimmering effect.
Yeah, and it's great.
And the two of them are like in silhouette.
Yeah,
as he confesses that he is Ultraseven and will have to leave soon.
Yeah,
and she's the only one who knows. And when Ultraseven flies off for the final time, and his team is standing there, and like they never get a proper goodbye, they just have to. Watch as their teammate and friend leaves forever.
this is one of those times where you're just like, okay, I'm really happy, especially knowing, because it's been so long, that at least An ends up meeting him more times. Because we still have Heisei Ultraseven to watch as well.
Yeah. Interesting.
This is a very good show.
It is a great show.
It is a very damn good, great show. I love this show. This is up there. It's above Mebius for me, in all honesty.
Okay.
It might be like tied. Nexus is just its whole own thing. That's still my number one.
Yeah, Blazer for me is still my number one. But this is up there with G'd. It's up there with Mebius. It's up there with X.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
It's one of the great ones.
It's really good.
One of the good ones, yes.
Watching it and finishing it, it was just like, okay. I understand now why this is always the one that's referenced versus the original Ultraman. This almost feels like peak Ultra. Like, this is peak Ultra. It's so damn good. But yeah.
Join us next time.
God damn, it's such a good show.
Join us next time as we hopefully keep up the winning streak when we review
Cho Sensei. Flashman. I mispronounced the hell out of that. I think it's Cho Sensei. Flashman. But yeah, Flashman's next.
And Sentai.
I started this years ago. I still haven't finished. I don't know why I haven't finished it. But I'm very excited. Very excited. Just like we've been on a good streak with this, and I'm just happy that streak seems to have continued. So yeah, join us next time for Flashman. Let us know what you think about Ultraseven in the comments below. Don't forget to join us for all the things. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching.